Hello, you're welcome. You're welcome onto my channel today, and it gives me great joy to observe you are doing this video. I'm Dr. Olayinka Conley. I'm a lecturer in the university. I'm a gender expert. I'm a sociologist. I'm a development sociologist. On this channel, I do a number of stuff, but all the stuffs I do, they are to add value to my subscribers and my viewers. Meanwhile, if you have not subscribed to this channel, kindly go ahead and click subscribe on your screen right now. Tap subscribe on your screen right now to subscribe to this channel. The video today is on gender and development. Some say GAD, some say GAD. This video today will be discussing the relationship between gender and development. And it's very important to view this video to the end because while the world has made some progress towards achieving gender equality and towards achieving better mainstreaming of gender into development processes and outcomes, the world is not making sufficient progress. In fact, the world is off track in achieving gender equality by 2030 within the framework of Sustainable Development Goals. The world is not moving, it's not gaining sufficient traction, and is most likely not going to achieve the target set for gender equality. That's, SDG, gender equality, by 2030. And this is going to be very concerning. And that's why I think it's very important for me to make contribution, to draw attention for us to be able to appreciate the importance of gender mainstreaming in development. Particularly SDG number 5, is concerned with achieving gender equality, across activities in development. And beyond the goal 5, you could find gender equality or gender issues being cross-cutting across other sustainable development goals that have been set for achievement by 2030. Meanwhile, for you to be able to appreciate, to understand this video sufficiently, there's another video on this channel on gender and society. It's good to view that video to set the background, sufficient understanding for this particular video you are viewing. While gender can be described as socio-cultural representation of sex, sex is purely biological, but gender is social attachment or cultural construction or value and traditional, attachment to sex. So sex is biological, gender is social construction, value attachment of situations, value attachment to sex. That's what we call gender. And gender is not about women alone. It talks about relationships, among genders that you may have in a particular society. If a society is commonly considered, commonly considered gender between male and female, then we talk about gender in terms of male and female, relationship between male and female. But in societies where you have many other gender representations, it simply talks about relationship among different gender constructs, different sexual constructs. So important point I want to make here is that gender is social, sex is biological. It's very important for me to set this background so that you can understand my interest and what I mean by gender as I proceed. So, and gender and development is particularly very interested, specifically very interested in the need, to mainstream gender into development processes and outcomes. Gender and development talks about mainstreaming of gender considerations, gender concerns, gender sensitiveness into policies and strategy being adopted to achieve development. So gender development pays attention to the implication of gender exclusion or gender inclusion in development policies, in development practices, in development strategies. So, and this is very important because we believe it is not possible for a bird to fly with one wing. With one wing. We believe that for a bird to fly sufficiently, just the same way, a flight, cannot fly with one wing. There's a need for us to accommodate all genders in a particular society and pay attention to the relationships existing among different genders or between different genders so as to have sustainable development. If we exclude a particular gender, definitely the development will not be inclusive. So gender inclusion is very important. Gender mainstreaming, in terms of development process, all genders must contribute to development process and all genders must benefit from development outcomes or development benefits and policies, laws, practices, programs, activities, initiatives geared towards development must be gender sensitive, must be gender inclusive. Otherwise, there'll be problems. So gender development talks about working with structures towards social transformation, working on structures, institutions, norms, traditions, values, practices, and so on in a society in a way that they become gender sensitive, in a way that they are interested in gender inclusion, in a way that they are interested in gender equality to the extent that no gender is left behind. And this is very important because it's not about rewarding tokenism. It's not about rewarding mediocrity. It's not about, okay, give women more or give men more. It's about, gender equity, gender equality, provide equal platforms, provide equal opportunities for people to be able to participate in development process. This is only when development and SDG will be achievable. But many countries in the world, Africa, Asia, Latin America, even in so-called developed countries, we still have some element of leaving one gender behind. And that means we are netting off, especially in some countries in Africa where the population pyramid or population structure is showing almost 50-50 of the two dominant genders. Then if you exclude one gender, that means you are excluding 50% of opportunities to contribute to development and benefit from development. So better gender inclusion is very important, and evidence has shown us that countries with better gender inclusion, gender equality, gender equity fare better, perform better on development compared to countries where you have gender exclusion, gender inequality. We find. So gender is a major, this point is very important. Gender is a major determinant of development. And gender will be a major determinant of achievement of sustainable development. Even since we galvanized support or interest in gender equality in 1995, during the Beijing Platform of Action, on the account of 4th United Nations World Conference on Women. Since then, the tempo has gone down. After Beijing, we had some traction, but after Beijing, after a while, we lost that momentum. Until today, we've not been able to gain the momentum back, and this is a major problem. Except we factor gender into development processes and outcome, development will become continually elusive. And people have asked questions about why is Africa perpetually underdeveloped? Why is Asia perpetually underdeveloped? What is happening in the Middle East? What is happening in Latin America? What's happening in the Caribbean? Even why are they dropping the balls on gender inclusion or gender equality, even in some so-called developed countries? And why are they not having sustainable development across all these places? We may have gender question. We need to ask questions on our activities on gender inclusion. So gender is key, and until we factor gender into all of this, paying close attention to our gender activities and gender outcome, gender processes of how much we factor gender or we mainstream gender into development process, we might not be able to achieve sustainable development goal, and we may not be able to achieve development across the world. The world is asking the question of why development, or why are poor countries continually underdeveloped? And why are developed countries dropping the ball? The answer to that question is to look towards gender equality, gender inclusion. Yeah, I'm saying that on authority. Until we factor gender into development processes. Seriously. Now people are paying lip service to it. Until we factor into it seriously, development may be further afield. And this will be very concerning. So what are we supposed to do? We have to look, for example, there are, across the development processes, gender plays a key role. Now let me look at some stages of gender and development. Some stages through which you can factor gender. Mainstream, we have to break the glass ceiling. The glass ceiling where we believe gender or gender cannot perform beyond this particular level in development process. We have to break that ceiling. That artificial ceiling that have been placed on a particular gender, for example, it could be women, in some societies, the glass ceilings that we have placed on women, we have to break because many women are becoming very competent in contributing to the development process. And in some societies where men we have glass ceiling placed on men. You think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding. There are some societies where men or young boys are not given sufficient opportunities to participate in the development process. We have them. So don't think it's only about women. And God is not about women, it's about gender and development. About women is women and development. That is what. So gender and development encompasses women and development. Women, are just a component of gender. So gender and development is broader, it's more comprehensive, it's more realistic. So we talk about intergender relationships in development processes. So we're not even talking about what? Women and development, which is just a component of gender and development. So gender and development already encompasses what? So we have stages of God. How do we mainstream gender into development? We can start from development planning. The process of development planning, when we are planning development, to begin to ask gender question. Even in social policy, we ask gender question. In public policy, we ask gender question. How will gender be mainstream into this process? Right from design stage. Then you can even talk about at the level of programming. That's number one, development programming. As we are developing programs after the design, then we begin to factor gender into it. Even into budgeting. As we budget, we ask gender questions. How will they affect different gender? What budget elements or items are zeroing in, through gender? Then we talk about implementation. At the level of implementation, how will gender be factored into it? In terms of ownership and buying, how will gender be factored into it? During monitoring, we ask gender questions to be sure that all genders are carried along. Even at the level of evaluation, we evaluate development project outcomes through gender lens, and this is very important. Even during sustainability, we ask questions. How will this project, this program, this development program, how will it be sustained along gender lines? And even in our theory of change, we build in development processes, we ask gender questions. We build gender into our theory of change. And then when you now look at it, we can even enter this guide from 4 entry points, when we are intervening. I've talked about across, how we can mainstream gender into development across stages. Now, what are the entry points we can use when we want to actually sufficiently develop in mainstream gender into development process and outcome? We can do this at 4 different entry points. I've mentioned stages. Now I want to mention the entry point. You can enter it through laws and policies. We innovate policies, we innovate laws that will be gender sensitive. We bring gender into determinantly. Then we can also talk about programs and projects, where we develop projects and programs that will be able to mainstream gender into the development process. Then the people, and that's why this video is very important, to bring it to the attention of people, conscientize people, get buy-in of people on the need. Is people will drive development and people will benefit from development. Development is actually for people. So we need to get buy-in. We have to get ownership for people to recognize and appreciate the need for gender in the development processes and outcome. Then we talk about enabling mechanisms. You have to put mechanisms in places to be able to sustain, to jumpstart, to drive and sustain the role of gender in development. We have to be deliberate. We have to. It's not an academic matter. It's a practical, pragmatic, programmatic, matter for us to be able to achieve sustainable development goals and to be able to particularly achieve sustainable development goal 5 and achieve cross-cutting issues of gender, build the issues of gender into all the sustainable development goals, because gender is a main cross-cutting issue in sustainable development goal. And particularly the 5, we have to pay attention to this. And there must be commitment. Without commitment and institutionalization of gender issues in development is not going to happen, at least not in the nearest future. Wow. Serious issue. Issues have been discussed there today. Kindly go ahead and click subscribe to this channel and share the video as widely as possible. Till I see you in my next video. Bye for now.